Hello and welcome to the channel. Henning Pauli here. Today we're talking Namm news. Why are we not talking Namm news from the Namm showroom floor? Well, a couple of reasons. For years, I have done Namm, went there, did 70 videos in 4 days. Ridiculous. Worked my ass off. The last 2 times I was there, I barely did any content, and it actually didn't really hurt the channel. And it's kind of counterproductive to go and make content on the floor. It's not the greatest content, and it tells you the news. But the thing is, you already know the news of what's happening on the floor. And I can't really evaluate a product. I can tell you that's there. Just like everyone else, my friends in shops tell you that's there. I'd rather do that from here because you know what? Other people are doing great Namm show coverage, so I don't really need to be there. And let's talk about the orange elephant in the room. I lived in the States for 10 years. I lived in California and Los Angeles for 6 years. I lived very close to Namm. For me, going to Anaheim is really PTSD. I'm not happy there. I'm pretty depressed there. It's not a nice place to be. And I do not enjoy it. And it costs me thousands to go to a place I do not enjoy to meet my friends and friends from the industry. That's great. The people I love. But in the current climate in the States, it kind of feels wrong to me to go to a country that recently simply just declared war on NATO and the EU, or that's shooting people in the streets. That's simply the fact. And you can like that or not like it, and you can say, well, you're European, you know, stay in your own lane. I lived in the country. I love many people in the country. Okay? Comment anything you want. That's fine. Go right ahead. Be that guy. But there's a problem, and we got to say it. And I'm saying it by not going to Namm. I couldn't see myself pretending that everything's okay when right now things are really not okay. So that's why I'm not there. And I know other content creators made the same decision. I know that brands made the decision. There aren't a lot of brands at Namm. Some had to go, I get it, not judging them, but that's just the situation. So what we'll do now is we'll talk about not all the Namm news. I possibly can't. We'll talk about the stuff that's coming out on my channel, some things that I have seen, and what I'll do in tomorrow's video is I'll go through some of the videos and do maybe like reaction videos to Namm content. Because why not, right? Why not do that? And on Sunday, we're going to talk about that new baby that's over there and why, and don't quite know the topic of Sunday yet. We'll see. So, on the channel, what's coming? And it's not coming right now during Namm because it's pointless to do a 40-minute video on a new modeler when you just want the news of what's happening at Namm. So watch all the Namm coverage. That's fine. I'll release my Namm content videos next week. So one thing you've already seen, the JBL Bandbox Solo. That's a great little product. I think JBL really came out of left field telling people, oh, by the way, we're now doing little amps that do modeling and stem splitting, and it's Bluetooth and it's battery powered and it's got all these features. The little one even has a mic in it that I didn't even point out in my video. There's this good shit. And there's also a big one, the Trio, which is really for busking and an actual mobile PA, that will launch next week, I think Wednesday. So this came out of complete nowhere. They're not even on the Namm floor because those products already released in Asia. They're releasing right now in Europe, but not in the US, which is why they're not officially on the Namm floor. They are somewhere in a hotel room showing this behind closed doors, even though it's launching here in Europe already. These are great. I see very little cons on these products. The modeling is, you know, fine for what it's supposed to be. And JBL solo video is already out, Trio video coming next week. Then we're looking at a new guitar from a sub-brand of Enya. Now, why they had to start a new brand under the name Xmari, I have no idea. That makes very little sense to me. But this is the idea of a guitar with a built-in modeler made out of carbon, taken to the extreme budget extremes. I think in the US, this will be $220, and it should land somewhere around the $199 at some point. Comes with a strap, comes with many things, and it's a carbon guitar, comes in white and this flat gray black, right? And it has a built-in modeler. Just like the Enya guitars, this is not the greatest thing, but you can see the little light there. You click it, you have some sounds, you got OTG, you got headphone out. So for $200, you're buying yourself a decent beginner guitar that also has modeling built in Bluetooth streaming and all that. I don't think anyone brought it down to that level in terms of price. So that video is hitting Monday, I think. And I'm pretty sure they're showing it at Namm. They launched it a couple days early, as many people do. Just like Revv did with the Dirtdog. Wow, that autofocus is slow. This is the Joey Landreth signature pedal. And it's a simple overdrive. But it's just glorious in how beautiful it sounds. I just had a blast with this. So that video launched if you want to already see it. And if not, there's probably other videos. Revv, again, did a great product. What can I say?
Dirty dog, rolling around like a happy hog. Dirty dog, he don't care as he jumps like a frog.
What else is coming? Oh, the More M2. Now, that's really not Namm news. This thing is already out for a while. This is a battery-powered... Come on. Are you booting or not? How long do I have to push you? Ah, longer. This is a battery-powered modeler from the Prime series. You edit it with an app, but it has a touchscreen on it, which is pretty stunning. No 9-volt, but USB-C power. Headphone out, aux in... No, headphone out, MIDI in. Mono in, stereo out. This thing isn't new, but it's just new on my channel. But what is new is that these now have AI preset generation. So you're telling it in a prompt what you want, and then it creates 3 presets that it thinks are what you want. How successful is it in that? Watch the video. And right now at Thomann, this is $169. It offers a shit ton for $169. So even without the AI stuff, this is pretty damn cool. One of the bigger news, Blackstar is taking the IDX modeling from their IDX amps, which are brilliant for the money, and putting it into floor modelers. Now, this is the biggest one. That's the 3. There's a IDX Floor 1, clocking in MSRP at $199. That's a steal. These have XLR, all that shit. This is a bit wonky because it's plastic, but on the biggest one, this is just $299. You have direct access to the effects blocks, presets, up, down, channels, tap, very simple editing, no menu diving. There's an editor, but this is pretty straightforward. Cool sounding amps. Sound-wise, absolutely competitive in the budget range. No, it can't compete with your Quad Cortex. Of course not. But it doesn't have to. This is a solid product, and one for $199, small, light, metal, XLR. I can't fault it at anything, especially in that price range. So that video is again hitting next week. Also next week, we're looking at I'm looking at it right there. I'm going to show you some product shots. The RedSeven amplification Numero Uno. Now that's a completely different beast. That's not convenient. That's a 100-watt amp with KD88s, 1 channel, doesn't do a lot. It's a signature amp for Australian blues guitarist Stefan Haug. But what it does is it makes you very happy. You can play this clean, never crank up the gain. It goes like mid-gainish, let's say that. It's just to die for guitar sound perfection. It's an amazing amp. That's coming next week. The week after, I finally launched my Friedman Jose amp video. Now, again, that amp was announced last year at Namm, was released about September here-ish, and they were shipping out. So it's not new, but it's also not old. And this is, of course, the dream amp for anyone wanting to have the sounds of the 80s rock icons, whether it'll be Steve Vai or Eddie or Mick Mars or whatever. Not cheap, but holy crap, what an amp. What an amp. And we're going to talk about the Friedman Arredondo in a second on the stuff that I don't have here yet, but what's coming. What else do I have on the channel? That amp, that. We're looking at the new stuff from Yamaha. Not sure yet what I think about some of the features. Yamaha is releasing smaller mixers and audio interfaces. There's white ones, there's black ones, there's smaller ones and bigger ones, starting at 350 up to 1200, I think. And I've got the 12-channel mixer. Now, they're trying to hit a lot of points here, and I don't know if it all makes sense, but it might. This is a very complicated product that I'm going to have to take a much deeper look at, which is why I don't have a video yet. This is the MGX12V, and the V stands for video. So, no flying faders. But what this is it's a mixer for your band and small live gig. 4 mic pre's, 12 inputs overall, output, direct outs. You've got 4 headphone outs. So it's also a podcast studio with simple functions. So you can switch it to simple mode, and then even if you don't know what you're doing, you can level in and stuff like this. But I've reviewed the dedicated podcast studios from Mackie and from Rode, and I feel especially with this tiny screen and the way they have the user interface that it could be a bit more intimidating than the dedicated podcast studio. So this is a podcast studio for the musician maybe, or the content creator that already knows a bit more about audio processing than others. Okay, it's not that turnkey, but you've got faders and all that stuff. These come off a little bit too easy, but it's also a prototype. It says proto. It is compared to the Mackie, for example. This is plastic, but this is metal. No, this is metal. Yeah, this is all metal, and then this is all metal. That is plastic, that's metal. It is higher quality, more rugged than the podcast studios. The special thing that I think is super cool, I mean, it's got the, effects button. So it is podcast studio / mixer. So it's got all the mixing stuff in it that you would want. It's, of course, an audio interface, 2 USB-C ports, one for going to a computer and one for putting your phone into it and stuff like this. But you can see in the back here, there are HDMI ins and outs. And that made me very, very interested in this. Because as a content creator, it would be super, super cool to plug in a camera right now, right? Run the camera through this, plug in my mic, and merge my mic audio with the camera instead of going into what I'm going into right now, which is a new version of the Sennheiser EWD Portable, right? Oh, right. sorry, which is sending and also recording on a card. But right, I don't know how the levels come out. This is a new system I'm trying. So there are, of course, other ways, but plugging your mic directly in here, or more mics, or podcast, and then actually merging the podcast audio with the video directly is cool. My only question is, you plug it in and then it has a through, so that you could go to a monitor or TV. It doesn't have a video out. So there is no merging it with the video internally and then going out, so I could go to an external recorder, like an Atomos or whatever. And then the question is, how do you actually record the video with the audio on it? That was my big question. And apparently they formed an alliance with OBS, officially OBS certified, or Yamaha or certified OBS. And I said, I don't know what I think about that, because OBS is open source and most people hate it, and I do. So if OBS is the way to record the video, I always had problems setting up codecs, quality, sync issues. I don't know if I like that. So we're going to have to find out, because I haven't had access to the software yet. Further, I said, well, this could be really, really great for content creators if they're not just musicians, but we're talking about gamers. Plug in your Xbox, go through to the TV, plug in a mic, and then narrate, and then record, wherever that is, in OBS, whatever, and merge it all together. So there are questions. Question number one is, where is the audio from the Xbox? Does that actually take the audio from the HDMI input and put it on a channel? I haven't been able to see that, but again, I haven't had the manual or the software. And then, very important for content creators, the HDMI input through to the TV. What's the latency on that? Because a gamer will not accept any latency. So I had a meeting with them, and all these questions came up, and the European team so far doesn't have the answers. So I will see if this is a killer product to feature once I have all the questions answered that you want to know. Because if I do the video just like, oh, it's got these features and this is great, and then you ask me about the stuff, and I'm like, well, I don't know. And then I look like an idiot. So I really have to evaluate this. This is a very, 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 very complicated video. So you could buy yourself a mixer for your band, mixer for at home, mixer for your desk, a podcast studio, 4 inputs. The bigger one has 8, I think. 4 headphone outs, and a video creation, something merging audio station. Nobody does that. If they're doing it well, this could be an amazing product. And there's also an audio interface version with the V on it, which doesn't have the faders, but the rest is there. And on that, you could do the same thing. So this could be an amazing audio interface for video creators, because you can plug in your camera. However, we need to know all these answers. So that might be coming, we'll see. What else is new for Namm? Okay, well, some stuff you probably already know. We're talking about Quad Cortex Mini. Now, people want to bitch about it, people might not want to bitch about it. What is it? It's the Quad Cortex in Mini. And I'm pretty impressed, because they seem to have given it most of the ins and outs that the big one has. They seem to have given it the same size screen that the big one has, no less processing power. All it is, it's smaller and has less foot switches. That's it. Which is also why it's not that much cheaper. It's not a reduced version in capability, really only in size and foot switches. And the rest, you can profile on it, all that stuff, the rest is there. So at $12.99, it's really just $300 cheaper than the big one. So you're not really buying that to save money, you're buying that to save real estate. It is easier to travel with, even though the Quad Cortex is already pretty damn small. It's easier to travel with, it's easier to throw in your gig bag and stuff like this. It's a different approach than a Helix Stomp, where the Helix Stomp has a much smaller interface, less processing power, and so on. And that's why they could reduce it in price. It's a lesser Helix. The Quad Cortex Mini is not a lesser Quad Cortex, only in size and foot switch count. That's it. It's a different approach, could be interesting. I wrote to them and said, could I make a video? Because with Neuro, I'm not really, first line defense when it comes to videos for them. And I reach out, I ask, let's see what happens. Then there's also a new modeler from, what was their name? X something. XRecer. I don't know. Looks very fully featured, but it seems to be still kind of in development. And saw it this morning, wrote to them and said, hey, let's talk. And then immediately came back, even though they're at Namm, and said, well, what do you want to see in a big modeler, blah, blah, blah. So they definitely immediately knew who I was and wanted some input. That was nice, but I can tell you nothing about it. Now, I have not had my hands on it. Actually, that's not true. The big thing releasing is pedal head and the Friedman IR load. That's a boring name, Dave. I'm sorry. They're releasing a technology that was developed in conjunction with Synergy. Now, Wampler, Friedman, Tone King, Synergy, we're throwing all these words around. It's the same people behind everything. Of course, some people have a certain percentage of stake into the company that others don't. Dave Friedman is Friedman, but the people making some of the tech are the same people. And then they go like, hey, you worked on this, and Dave worked with Pete Thorne on the load box. So they put their tech into the load box as well. But it's developed really by the people, I don't want to say behind Synergy, but behind Boutique Amps distribution. People with brains. People that can move things in the industry. So what we have here as a Wampler product, it's called the pedal head. And that is a very small-sized pedal that goes at the end of your chain. Imagine it being like a Seymour Duncan Power Stage Class D amp. Well, the problem here is those amps sound flat and not alive and not three-dimensional. Class D makes things loud. It doesn't make things pretty. And a prototype of that, I played at Namm a year ago. I already had my hands on it, but in a closed room at Namm where there was still Namm showroom floor audio, I couldn't really experience it the way that I was supposed to experience it, but I already played it. And the idea here is it uses machine learning. A tube amp communicates with your cab. There's constant fluctuation in impedance and insert other technical words that I don't know. The tubes communicate with the cone of the cab, right? Continuously. Now that doesn't happen with Class D, which is why the magic isn't there. The mojo is missing. Now this thing, you go and you hit a learn button. It sends test tones loudly through your cab and learned how your cab behaves. And as it plays its power ampedness into, it's a power amp, into the cab, there is this communication. But in order to do this real-time communication with a lot of data coming back from the cab and then it reacting like a tube amp to the cab, you need massive processing power. And the processor they have in there is ridiculous. It is, I was told, hundreds of times more powerful than the strongest processor they have used in other products. It's a ridiculous piece of gear. And it can only be done with this processor. Their technology now is copyright protected, patented, that's the word. And here's the special thing. This pedal head, Wampler product, this big, is a stereo power amp. So for all you pedalboard nerds that want stereo, fuck yeah. And on each of the outputs, it has about 60 watts of power. Well, 60 watts of what? Well, if you're looking at Class D, that's boring. It actually has 200 or 300 Class D power, but it is 60 watts comparable to a tube amp. So if you have a 60 watt tube amp, that's what's coming out of there twice. That is beyond ridiculous. However, you do not need that volume, but it can deliver it. Then they packed that same technology into a Friedman labeled, developed with Pete Thorne and Dave Friedman, load box IR loader. So that thing is a load box, right? With reactive load as it should be. Then it's loading down your amp, so your amp is totally fine. You can play it without a cab. That signal can then go mono into an effects chain, come back stereo. So you have stereo effects, which will go out of a pair of XLRs to your mixer or to your DAW. So you can, like others, use it as a load box, put the effects behind the amp, and go stereo out with stereo effects and IRs. And the Friedman IRs are pretty damn good. You can, of course, load whatever fucking IR you want, or use DI and then use IRs in your DAW. But then, if you want to go to cabs, yes, cabs, stereo, it's using, again, the same machine learning power amp technology, and this time with two 90-watt outputs. Tube equivalent, 90 watts, way loud. So you can go direct, load down your amp, put effects behind your amp, and go back to cabs, which will see and communicate with it as if it's an actual tube amp, because it's doing this with that machine learning power amp. And in it, they actually have the behavior of some very famous power amps already, whether it be deluxe reverbs or rectifiers or whatever. I don't know which ones, but you can actually change what the cab sees. I was told it's absolutely amazing. I was told ABs, even with the most seasoned players, nobody could tell the difference. I played it and it felt fine, but that was a year ago. They will send these to me. I will review them. Further, that's really interesting tech that really could change the way that we see power amps, that we use pedal boards. And for modelers, this could be an amazing thing to take a quad cortex stereo into the pedal head and make it loud, very small. Pricing, I'll be honest, pricing, I know what they're targeting. I'm not at liberty to say, because we don't know yet. And I'm not going to tell you any pricing, and then in the end, they can't hit that price point. Okay. So further, they're releasing the Royalist Tone King pedal. Now, the Imperial pedal, with its stereo effects loop, stereo XLR out, IR loading, was extremely successful. And it's an amazing pedal. For me, clean. Imperial driven gets dense and fuzzy because you're talking power amp distortion, all that stuff. Now, I think when you want some drive sounds, the Royalist, which I also have the actual amp of, is, I would say, equally good to the Imperial when it comes to the cleans. Slightly differently voiced, but equally good for pedals and all that stuff. But its drive sounds are JMP-ish kind of super leads. So you could really get classic Plexi-ish type things. I think when it comes to drive, that's probably the more interesting pedal. And that's on the platform, as far as I understand, of the Imperial pedal. So that's coming out very soon. I'll review it, and that's going to be a really interesting product. They nailed it with the Imperial. Why wouldn't the Royalist pedal be amazing? I haven't seen them, but apparently Friedman is also introducing 3 smaller heads. One that's AC-ish, that's all I know. One that's a 20-watt version. You know, they have smaller versions of their big amps. A 20-watt version of the Phil X, which could be super cool, because that Phil X is a very nicely groomed 800 with a couple of features that Phil wants. And having that in a 20-watt version, if it delivers, could be good. I would assume that even at 20 watts still clocks in at around 2K. Now, I don't know if he's showing it there, but I was told that one of the ones that they're also showing, and I think this should be the big thing to talk about, is a 20-watt Arredondo. Now, and that's not going to be affordable in the €1,500 range. It wouldn't be. Easily $2,000 or more, because the 100-watt Arredondo clocks in at €4,750 and about $4,500 or something like this. So because they're paying tribute to Jose Arredondo, the guy that modded all the Marshalls in the 80s, who is kind of the godfather of high gain, and what an amazing high gain it is. But They're paying royalties to the family, which is a super cool thing. So it's done together with the family. I do not know the price point on that, but it's not going to be $47.50. And I have a hunch that it's possible to get close to those sounds since they are done more in the preamp stage than the power amp stage. So at 20 watt, I think Dave probably can pull it off to make this a very, very, very cool amp. And at 20 watt, you can probably still gig with it and definitely use it into loads at home to record with. So Boutique Amps Distribution has a lot of cool shit to show. Poly has a new bigger model, and now Poly has great pedals for the reverbs, which is the verbs, and then the one with all the amps, not so great for high gain, but ridiculous for cleans and mid gains. And that pedal, and apparently he had one for more synthy kind of weird sounds, which freaking Loki never showed me because he's like, well, I don't know if that's your thing. Loki, that's my thing. Of course. So now it looks like they partnered with a different company and they're showing a huge pedal with loads of ins and outs and network and stereo XLR loop. I mean, a huge display on it. I don't know exactly the details, but that looks super interesting. What else do I know? I mean, commenting on stuff I really haven't had my hands on doesn't feel right to me, but okay, this is Namm news. Casio, which is weird, Casio released a thing which is $2.99. It's already at Sweetwater, where you have expression control with your strap. The video that Yvette Young did is weird, doesn't really show it off, but apparently you put this at the end of your strap, and then you have your box on your strap, and then when you pull on your guitar, you literally just trigger expression control, which it transmits wirelessly, digitally to a box on the board, which is then analog plugged into any expression control on any pedal. I would hope also MIDI. So that way you could, for example, pull and increase feedback or increase delay mix or increase gain. And while you're moving around on stage, actually create movement that has audible results. Could be cool. PRS is doing stuff. What do I know? They have a limited edition Ed Sheeran splattery baritone SE for $18.99. Now, an SE for $18.99 is pretty ridiculous. It's pretty much a straightforward splattery SE in baritone, which could be super cool. Super cool. They're great guitars. But for $18.99, I don't know. But apparently it's limited. And it's Ed Sheeran. So, and there's like a signed print of a picture in it that he did splatter pictures. I don't know. I heard it's limited to 1,000 pieces or something, or maybe less. It's cool, but it feels $18.99. It feels a bit steep. What else do I know? What else have I seen? Oh, RedSeven has a lunchbox version of the Duality. About this big, metal, with built-in load and built-in direct out. I'm thinking 12 to 1400. That could be kind of cool. Bad Cat launched a new amp. I don't know anything about that. Victory announced the MKX at, I think, 1500. About maybe this big, and throw everything in the kitchen sink at it that Martin Kidd wanted in a more affordable amp. I requested to review it. We'll see what happens. They're not at Namm, which I'm not judging anyone who's there, but tip my hat off to anyone who decided, let's not do that. Like Baum Guitars from Denmark. Oh, it's weird. Why wouldn't Danish people want to go to America right now? Oh, I don't know. Because there was open threats of war against their territory. I don't know. Let's just go to the country that's insulting and threatening us. No, they decided let's not, which is a good idea. And they have a new Wingman, which I'm going to review. That's coming. I think Mad Professor has a new pedal. Don't know what that is. we'll see. We'll see what's coming. But I have a few news that I filmed. Oh, Blackstar, in addition to the IDX Floor, also has a budget-friendly FRFR cab. Or they're calling it an FR cab because it's tuned. And I don't quite know what that means. My friends in a chat talked about that. I'll deal with it when it's here, which should be the end of the month. They said something about the 28th. I might get my hands on it. I will review that FRFR cab. And it looks like there's a 50 and 100 watt version. So not super overpowered. And it looks like they're about 350. 350. I mean, come on. Who doesn't like a cab that's 350? So that's it for my Namm ideas right now. I'll watch some videos and maybe tomorrow we know more. Links below to shops. Check out what they already have. And items at the end.
The garden's full of last year's leaves. The mailbox of reminder fees. And I'm not sure I'm needing all those shoes. The hall's a mess, can't find my keys. The kid is hurt his other knee. And now we're cutting back on all the booze. Our hair getting grey,